Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is December 8th, 2025. My name is Mo, and welcome to the podcast, the Barca News podcast, which is on every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where not only we discuss Barcelona news, but where I also get to interact with you lovely people in the chat section by reading your comments, answering your questions, and getting that discussion going. For those of you who will be watching when the podcast ends, I will be putting timestamps in the description in chapters in the timeline in case you do want to skip through the discussion and get straight into the news. Today we have some pretty juicy topics, starting with Ronald Araujo, because some reports stating that the Uruguayan defender's case might be more serious than initially thought. Also, we're going to talk about the refereeing scandal that Real Madrid won't show you, something that a lot of people missed during yesterday's match between Madrid and Celta Vigo. And finally, we're going to talk about the possible swap deal between Nkunku and Robert Lewy-Nkunku. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. If you're looking for any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, make sure to go Kids Keep Back with Fanatics. If you're looking to place any sports bets, make sure to bet us. All links are in the description. You click on them, you get access to special deals and offers. And well, with Christmas right around the corner, well, that you should take advantage of those discounts and offers, which you would not get otherwise if you just went straight to those websites. If you click the link, you get access to the discounts. If you don't, then it's regular price for you. And of course, you don't want to miss that. Now, I do have a special announcement before we begin with the news because, ladies and gentlemen, per everyone's request, I asked this question the last two podcasts, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And I asked, do you want me to raffle the cat plushie? The cat plushie, of course, is the mascot that Barcelona selected for 125th anniversary last year. It's a cat for Catalonia, C-A-T, cat. And it's also a cat. And, of course, Barcelona have released a cat plushie, which has been selling very, very well. And I asked, do you want me to raffle off cat? And I got a lot of yeses. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will be raffling a cat plushie. I will be making a post on the page's Instagram, or on the channel's Instagram page, I should say, with the instructions on how to enter the raffle. So as soon as this podcast is over, head to Instagram, the channel's Instagram. It's in the, I think it's in the in the home tab of the channel, in the description up. If you look up where the description is, there's the links to all the pages, Twitter and Instagram. So head to the Instagram of the channel, and I will be making a post with instructions on how to enter the cat raffle. So good luck to everyone. And now let's begin with the news. And as always, the first segment of news is comprised of multiple bits of news for the sake of brevity. Starting, of course, that tomorrow the Champions League is back. The Champions! And tomorrow, Barcelona will be facing off against Eintracht Frankfurt at the Spotify Camp Nou. Of course, the last time we met, we faced off against Eintracht Frankfurt was also at the Spotify Camp Nou before the renovations began. It was in the Europa League, and Eintracht Frankfurt eliminated Barcelona, led by Xavi Hernandez, and then eventually they ended up winning the Europa League during that season. So tomorrow will be revenge time against the Bundesliga club in the Champions League, where Barcelona will need a victory. We have 3 matches left. We need victories to guarantee our spot in the top 8 in order to qualify to the knockout stages. If not, if we finish out of the top 8, of course, we would have to go and play 2 matches, playoff matches, 1 home, 1 away, to see if we can qualify to the round of 16. And we want to avoid that, because the last thing you want is yet 2 more matches added to an already exhausting calendar. Now, of course, the players did train today for the last time ahead of tomorrow's match. And one player that was training with the group, has been training with the group for quite some time now, is, of course, Marc-Andre ter Stegen. And as I told you in previous videos, when a player starts training with the group, it means they're nearing their recovery. Now, during yesterday's video, I told you that ter Stegen could be getting the green light. In other words, could be declared fit this weekend, or this upcoming weekend, against Osasuna. And that, of course, is huge news because ter Stegen has been out since July after undergoing back surgery. But now, Hansi Flick confirmed during a pre-match press conference that ter Stegen might be declared fit for tomorrow. So he might be coming back earlier than initially thought, because being declared fit against Osasuna was already earlier than initially thought. And now he could be declared fit for tomorrow. So earlier than earlier, initially thought Ter Stegen could be coming back. Now, Flick said it's possible. He didn't confirm that, yes, it will happen. It is possible. But either way, whether Ter Stegen is declared fit tomorrow or for the match against Osasuna, either way, it's great news because we want Ter Stegen fit. Why? Because Barcelona expect that he will leave during the winter transfer market in search of more minutes so he can become the starter for the German national team during the 2026 World Cup. And of course, you cannot go to another club if you're injured, right? No club's going to want to take Ter Stegen on loan or a permanent transfer if he's injured. But if he's declared fit before the winter transfer market, of course, the chances are much, much higher. And I think it's all going to depend on him because there's plenty of clubs interested in Ter Stegen. Now, even though Ter Stegen is on the verge of being declared fit, this is what Hansi Flick had to say about the goalkeeper position. Joan Garcia is number one. That's clear. Short, simple, direct to the point. Even if Ter Stegen is declared fit for tomorrow or the weekend, it doesn't matter. It's pretty clear for Flick that Joan Garcia is number one, which of course puts more pressure on Ter Stegen to leave during the winter because, as Nagelsmann has made it clear, if you want to be the starting goalkeeper for Germany in the World Cup, you need to have been playing. And here Flick telling Ter Stegen, great, welcome back, but you're not going to be playing. So in other words, Ter Stegen is going to have to look for minutes somewhere else. Now, Bild, Sports Bild in Germany, one of the most reliable sources when it comes to German players and the German market, have confirmed that Ter Stegen is seriously considered leaving and could be asking Barcelona to leave pretty soon. And this, of course, is great news because, again, it's good for him because he will be searching for minutes somewhere else so he can play the World Cup. And it's good for Barcelona because Barcelona have to register Joan Garcia. Remember, Joan Garcia is registered in the place of Ter Stegen because he's injured, meaning that on December 31st, that registration will most likely expire. And by January 1st, we're going to have to figure out how to register Joan Garcia. Now, Ter Stegen initially was saying, no, I won't leave. I'm going to see out my contract. Then reports started emerging that he was considering it. Now, reports from Bild saying that he's seriously considering it and he could even be asking the club to leave pretty soon. So we're definitely seeing a change of opinion or a change of stance for Ter Stegen. Now, more news because we do have 4 players who have accumulated 2 yellow cards each in the Champions League, of course, during the group stages. The third yellow means you get suspended for a match, as opposed to, for example, La Liga, where every 5 yellows you get suspended for a match. But we have 4 players who have 2 yellow cards each right now. It's Lamine Yamal, Frenkie de Jong, Marc, and Fermin Lopez. If either of these 4 players get a yellow card during tomorrow's match against Eintracht, then they will risk suspension, or they will be suspended, I should say, in the following Champions League match, which is against, I can't remember, some weak team, Slava Praha. I don't freaking know. Anyways, the last bit of news is that, ladies and gentlemen, Girona are keeping close eye on Marc Bernal. Girona are looking to replicate what they did with Eric Garcia, where they took Eric Garcia on loan, and everybody ended up winning from that situation. Girona got a very solid defender who ended up winning a starting position and played every single match for Girona, helping Girona reach that historical mark during that season where they finished top 4 in La Liga and they qualified to the Champions League. Eric Garcia, of course, was a winner because he ended up getting the minutes that he needed to develop, grow, and get some confidence. And then Barcelona won from that deal because, well, Eric Garcia came back more confident, and now we're seeing how important he has become in the team. Now, Girona are looking to replicate that formula with Marc Bernal. Since Marc Bernal has not been getting much minutes, they want to take him on loan during the winter transfer market for the rest of the season so they can get a solid midfielder. Bernal gets the minutes that he needs, and then Barcelona could get a player who has gotten a chance to play somewhere else. But the bad news for Girona is that Barcelona are not willing to send Bernal on loan because, of course, Bernal did undergo a very serious injury. He was out for more than a year. He needs to be monitored closely. He needs to follow the plan that Barcelona's doctors, trainers, and physios have come up with him for his reincorporation into the team. And, well, you cannot really trust another club to be doing that for you. So it's best that we keep Bernal at home, where we can keep an eye on him, where we can take care of him and make sure that he comes back gradually and he comes back the right way and not be rushed and, God forbid, get re-injured. Anyways, that is all the news for the first segment. Let's do the next bit of news, but first, comment section. Hold on, chill. Because next we're going to be talking about Ronald Araujo and Jules Koundé. But let's see what everyone is saying in the comment section. David said, Mo, you were robbed. You should have won the FIFA Peace Prize. Yeah, but why? I'm all for it, but why? By the way, see my lips? They're super dry. Yesterday, people were saying, Mo, are you wearing lipstick in your videos? I was not wearing lipstick. I was out all day running errands. And it's incredibly cold in New York for this time of the year. Usually this kind of cold, these kind of temperatures below zero are usually more like January, February weather. For some reason, they started late November. So it looks like we're going to have a very cold winter because, remember, technically it's still fall. But I was out all day, and the cold wind and the low temperatures pretty much completely destroyed my lips. And that's why they were so red or pink or whatever the fuck color it was. People were asking, Mo, are you wearing lipstick? No, I was not wearing lipstick. My lips were just incredibly dry and burnt from that cold weather. Larry says, hey, Mo, amongst my friends, I'm the only one I know believes in Rooney. Do you think if Flick puts his trust in him like he did Martin, Rooney would be untouchable? He can play 7, 10, 11. Maybe. That's not something I could say for sure because, of course, Rooney is still growing. And I don't mean physically as in he's getting taller as a football player. Because remember, he came from the Swedish league. And with all the respect to the Swedish league, that's, million levels below the Spanish league. So that's a huge jump to go from Swedish to Spanish, especially to Barcelona, right? Because you can maybe jump from Swedish to, I don't know, Levante. No, you're going from Swedish to freaking Barca. Huge jump. So, of course, he's still in that process of adapting to a new country, adapting to a new league, adapting to a new club, adapting to new teammates, adapting to new coach, adapting to new style of football. So there's a lot of adaptation going on. It's a lot of growing, a lot of learning. And that takes time. So it doesn't mean that Flick doesn't trust him or doesn't believe in him. I think he's just probably giving him the time to grow, to develop, to become better. And if he does, if he's able to continue growing and able to, impress Flick more, I'm sure he's going to get more minutes. I think we've seen clearly from the time that Flick has spent at the club that he's a merit-based coach. He's not a coach to overlook good players just because he favors others or anything like that. So I think if Rooney keeps impressing Flick during practices, I'm sure we're going to see more and more of him. So it's not whether we believe in him or not, it's whether he impresses Flick. Because you can believe all you want in a player. That doesn't matter. What matters is what he can do during practice. Spooky says, Mo, do you think we should go for Salah now that he could be leaving Liverpool? I love Salah. Don't get me wrong. He's one of my favorite players. Incredible players. But no. I think being 34 years old, I think we should be looking, obviously, at more younger players. But if he can come for free, maybe for a season or two, free. But then you have, of course, a problem with his salary. And I don't think we can afford his salary. But if Mo comes for free for a season or two with a decent salary, obviously not low, he's not going to accept low, and he shouldn't. He's an incredible player. Then yes. But to fork out a lot of money in a 34-year-old when we don't have that money, I would say no. But I do love Mo. I would love to see him at Barca. But, realistically speaking, objectively speaking, I should say, the answer would be no. Subjectively speaking, hell yeah. I would love to see Mo Salah at Barcelona, but no. Objectively speaking, it would not be a good move. I don't think so. Miz says, I think Barca will sign Liverpool players if they don't qualify for the Champions League. Ekitike could be a good target. We need a number 9. Again, it's all going to depend on what clubs are going to want for those players, on salaries. Because remember, we are in a financial hole. I know a lot of people like to say, oh, Laporta saved the club. No, nothing has been saved, okay? We're still in a very bad, precarious financial situation. We still have a 1.3, 1.4 billion euro debt. We're still spending more than what we're bringing in. We're still not under the 1-to-1 rule. We're still way over our wage limit. We're still in a very bad financial situation. And people keep forgetting that. And they keep talking about, Julian Alvarez, Haaland, Leao. And it's like, yo, you guys paying attention to my videos? Because we cannot afford those players. But it is. Let's get back to the news, and then we'll do more comments. But let's talk about Ronald Araujo, because today, Elena Condis, who's a very famous reporter, very well connected in the world of football, most of the time has really good, reliable information. And I say most of the time because, of course, even the best of reporters sometimes you get faulty information, or maybe they misinterpret information or whatever it may be. But Elena Condis has revealed that Araujo's situation might be a lot more serious than initially thought. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, as you know, after the Chelsea match, or the Chelsea defeat, the defeat at the hands of Chelsea in the Champions League, Araujo kind of disappeared. He stopped training. Initially, they told us it was a stomach virus. As you know, that's the number one excuse for any club when they don't want to really reveal the real reasons why a player is not training or why a player is not playing. And then eventually, it was revealed that it was not a stomach virus. It was actually that Araujo had asked from the club some time off because he needed to recover mentally. You know, having received a red card against Chelsea, he felt like it was his fault that the team lost. He was blaming himself. He was mentally not all there. So he, of course, with his agent, met with the club. He asked for some time off so he can recover mentally. And the club, of course, completely understood. They informed him that they supported him. They're, in fact, thankful that he came forward and asked for help. And they said, take all the time you need. And so far, we don't know when Koundé will be back. You know, we don't know if it's a few days, a few weeks, a few months. We don't know. And now, Elena Condis has revealed that it might be longer than we initially thought. That it looks like Araujo is deeply, deeply affected, and that it might take him some time to bounce back from what happened at Chelsea. Now, I talked about this in the previous podcast. I told you what I thought. If you want to see it, it's on the channel. But pretty much, to make a long story short, I think, of course, Araujo as a football player, he's still a human being first, and then a football player second. We all go through ups and downs in life. So I completely understand his position. I am happy that he was able to come forward and ask for help, because I think that's very important. And that goes for everybody who's watching. If there's anything you take from this, is that if you ever feel like you're down, you're depressed, you have anxiety, whatever it may be, it's very important to always come forward and ask for help, because it takes a village, right? We cannot go through life alone. It's very important to ask for help. So I'm glad that he did. I'm very proud of my club, FC Barcelona, for understanding his situation and for helping him and for giving him the time off, because they could have easily said no, right? Because hey, you have a contract, we pay you millions, F you and your mental health, you need to work because that's what we pay you for. They could have easily said that, but they didn't. So I'm proud of Barcelona for understanding, for supporting him. But I think once all this ordeal is behind Araujo, once he's recovered, once he's back, I think we should seriously consider offloading him, because we've seen that he simply does not fit under Flick's system. I think, Flick's system requires technical players, and Araujo is not really a technical defender. He's more of your classic defender, your typical defender, your old school defender, whatever you want to call it. Tall, strong, fast, very physical, can win air duels, can chase down defenders. And that's, great. Araujo has great attributes. He's a great defender. He's just not a Barca defender, right? And that's different. I think he would do great in Serie A, where it's a lot more physical. I think he could probably become one of the best, if not the best defender in Serie A. But under Flick's system, unfortunately, he just doesn't fit. And this is why we should consider offloading him, and more so if he doesn't have really the mental fortitude to withstand the pressure and demands of FC Barcelona. Because that's what separates really the players who end up at clubs like Barca, Madrid, the big clubs. than the rest. You can have very incredibly talented, skilled players, some of the best in the world, and they end up failing because half of it is mental. Half of it is physical, the other half is mental. And being a Barcelona player takes there's a lot of expectations on you. There's a lot of pressure. The demands are high. The stakes are high. And that sometimes is just a lot for players. That's why only a tiny, tiny fraction of all professional players end up playing for Barca. Part of it is because most players don't have the skill level to be a Barca player, but also some of them who do have the skill level don't have the mental fortitude to do it, right? Bojan Krkic, for example, incredibly talented. Everybody thought he would be the next Messi because he was very, very talented, but unfortunately, he didn't. Anxiety was too strong for him, and he ended up bouncing around teams, and I think he ended his career in the MLS. So Araujo already, skill-wise, doesn't fit Flick's system, and then you add to it that mentally speaking also doesn't have the fortitude to be a Barca player, then I think we should seriously consider offloading him come this summer. Now, another report that Elena Condis posted today, and I want to go over it real quickly, is in regards to another defender who is Jules Koundé, because Elena Condis reported that Koundé supposedly spoke to Hansi Flick about Araujo and said, hey, since Araujo's not available, I want to switch to a center back. Because, Koundé started as a center back. It was Xabi that kind of started playing him on as a right back at Barcelona. And initially, he was opposed to that idea, but then Flick kind of convinced him to stay as a right back. They had that conversation where he's like, hey, if you stay as a right back, I promise you I'm going to turn you, into one of the best right backs in Europe, which he was last season. This season, meh. But after that report came out, this is what Jules Koundé posted in reply to that report. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen with you. I was going to take a screenshot, but I said, hey, let me just give you the actual post. This is on Koundé's Twitter. This is the report where Elena Condis says that Koundé had a conversation with Flick and asked to be switched to the center back since Araujo's not available. And he posted this, which is, a truth-lie meter with the meter going all the way to a lie. Now, being that Elena Condis is a very reliable source in the world of football, of course, this could be interpreted two ways. Either that conversation never happened, or maybe it was just information that was misinterpreted, because there's a difference between saying, oh, Koundé went to Flick and said, I want to play as a center back since Araujo is injured or out. Or maybe Koundé said, hey, Flick, Araujo's out. If you need me to play a center back, I'm available. Right? There's a difference. There's a difference of like, oh, I don't want to be a right back. I want to be a center back versus, hey, man, like whatever you need me to do, I'll do. I know Araujo's out. We have one less center back. If you need to play center back, I'll play center back. If you need to play right back, I'll play right back. Whatever you need me, I'm at your disposal. Right? There's a difference there. So Jules Koundé's post can be interpreted either that conversation never happened. He never mentioned playing as a center back, or maybe that he did offer, but more as in like, hey, I'm at your disposal, as opposed to the story that Elena Condis posted that Koundé wanted to play as a center back, right? There's a big difference in those two stories. Anyways, let's go back to the comment section, and then we are going to talk about the big story that a lot of people missed during the Celta Vigo match, which just goes to show the influence of Real Madrid on refereeing. But of course, they want to talk about Negrita. Wow. Show this video to your Madridista friends once it's over. But let's see what everyone is saying. Let's see. Lanry says, would you start De Jong over Eric against Frankfurt? Yes, I would. Because Pedri and Eric, I think, put out a really great performance against Real Betis. I don't know why. For a second, I blanked. Who do we play against? Against Real Betis. And when they came off, our midfield kind of fell off. So that's what I would go with. Eric and Pedri. Just based on merit from the last match. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat section or in the comment section if you're watching this once it ends. Sean says, good night. Oh, Mo, you should do a video on our players who are on loan. I watched a video of Hector Fort, and he was great in his last 2 games. You know what? People have been asking for this for quite some time. I know I haven't done it, but I will. I will. Evgeny says, I made my research, and I don't know if we will be back to 1-1. If we will, someone or whatever, but summer 26, we need Schlotterbeck, Eta Young, Fofana. What do you think? I'm surprised why Barcelona hasn't resubmitted a request to the auditor. Because remember, the auditor, once Barcelona sold the rights to some of the VIP seats to the Middle East for 100 million euros, they hired an auditor. The auditor made a report and said, you cannot count on those 100 million because those seats are not built. And therefore, you cannot count that money as revenue. Now, not only are those seats built, but the stadium is also built and open. Well, not built. It's open, right? It's still being built. So I'm surprised why Barcelona haven't resubmitted for the auditor to issue a new report saying, okay, now that the stadium is open and the seats are built, you can count on those 100 million euros, because if they do, according to Barca, or according to Laporta, once those 100 million euros count, we would be back under the 1-1. So I don't know why they haven't done it. Maybe they have plans to do it pretty soon. I don't know. But we're going to have to wait and see, because we've heard this story before, right? We're going to reach the 1-1 if this happens with the Nike deal. As soon as the Nike deal is done, we're reaching the 1-1. Nike deal happens, nothing, no 1-1. And then Laporta comes out and says, well, we didn't reach the 1-1 because we didn't want to. Yeah, okay, here you go. That's how stupid Laporta thinks we are. Which, by the way, there are people that stupid, because there's people who not only believe what Laporta says, but they actually defend every single word. So the other story is that as soon as those 100 million euros are counted, we will reach the 1-1. I'm not saying that's a lie. I'm not saying that no. I'm saying I want to wait and see. I want to wait for Barcelona to resubmit for the auditor. I want to see the auditor issue report, and then that report being presented to La Liga, and then I want to see what the Liga say. Because at this point, it's more, for me, see it to believe it kind of situation with this board, as opposed to just believing whatever they tell us. Let's see. George says, so the PSG error and Inter error weren't his fault. Yeah, Araujo got to go. Lack of accountability has stagnated his growth. Nobody mentioned that it's not Araujo's fault. I don't think I said anything about Araujo not accepting responsibility for those errors. I don't know where that conclusion came from, but yeah. Let me see. The price is never right. We said we need a true right back, though. Right now, the priorities, of course, for Flick is center forward to replace Lewy, center back to replace Inigo, and most likely Christensen, who will also be leaving, and a left winger, because Marcus Rashford right now, there's no decision to keep him. So those are the priorities. I'm sure if we have more money, more financial fair play, once those 3 positions are reinforced, maybe we'll look at fullbacks. But for now, those are the 3 priorities, because unfortunately, given our financial situation, we have to prioritize. If we need 5 positions, we have to prioritize 2 or 3, because we don't have the money or the financial fair play to go for every single position that we need. All right, let's get back to the news, because we do have more news, and this one is a big one. This is a big one because, it shows another one of the millions of examples, the influence that Real Madrid has on referees, even though they want to sell you the story that it's all about Negreira. And 2, because, of course, given Real Madrid's influence in Spain, nobody is talking about this. Not a single major media outlet or radio station or newspaper. None of them are talking about this, which is what happened during the Celta Vigo match. And, of course, why? Because the political structure of Spain. And I've talked about this a lot, but I'll recap it, because I know there's going to be some Madridistas who are going to come here crying once they see the thumbnail and the title. For people who are always saying that Barcelona are favored by referees, I always laugh. Not because I'm a Barcelona fan or because I don't want to believe it. It's because it's impossible to believe once you take the context of what happens in Spain, the political context, the historical context, the cultural context. And if you knew anything about any of those topics, you would know, regardless of what team you're a fan of, the Barcelona are not favored by refs. The Barcelona are not favored by any football organization. The Barcelona not favored by their government. Barcelona not favored by anyone or anything in Spain. If anything, Barcelona have been oppressed for as long as the club has existed. In fact, one of the Barcelona presidents was assassinated by the dictator Franco. Why is that? Because Madrid, the city of Madrid, is not only the capital of Spain, but it's also the center of power. And Real Madrid, being Madrid's club, the city of Madrid's club, it's a representation of, well, the power, the seat of power in Spain. It's a representation of the crown. It's a representation of Spanish nationalism. On the other hand, we have FC Barcelona, which is a representation of Catalan identity and the Catalan movement for independence. That's why one of its presidents was assassinated by Franco. So, for as long as this club has existed, it has always been disfavored, not to use the word oppressed, because for the longest time they were oppressed, but disfavored by all the powers, not just in football, but political and economic powers in Spain. So when people come and tell you about how Barcelona are favored by refs, you tell them you clearly don't know what the hell you're talking about. Because if you knew anything about Spain, not football, but about Spain's politics, economy, culture, you would understand how that statement is impossible. Imagine a Jewish football club during the Nazi era, and imagine people telling you, hey, this club is favored by Germans. Yeah, okay. That's how stupid you sound when you come and talk about how Barcelona are favored by refs and La Liga and the Royal Spanish Football Federation and the CTA in Spain. Now that I've given you this introduction, let's look about one of the million more examples of how Real Madrid influence referees. By the way, the CTA, the Technical Committee of Referees, has always had presidents and members who were either Madrid's socios, former Madrid players, or former Madrid board of directors. The same with the Royal Spanish Football Federation's board. The same with La Liga's board. In fact, La Liga's president, Javier Tebas, is a Madridista. The CTA's president right now is an attorney who worked at Florentino Perez's law firm. But no, Negreira. In fact, in the 2000s, the CTA's president used to go around the hallways saying, as long as I'm the president of the CTA, Barcelona will never win a La Liga title. That's a fact, not an opinion. So again, when people start mentioning Negreira and talk to you about how Barcelona get favored by refs, just remind them of these simple facts. Now, let's talk about what we missed during the Celta Vigo match. But first, let's talk about this guy. Remember this guy? Munuera. Full name actually is José Luis Munuera Montero. This was during the last season. He showed a red card to Jude Bellingham because Bellingham said, fuck you, to him. Nothing controversial about this. This is not a red card where you could debate, should have been a red, maybe should have been a yellow. I don't know if it was a foul. I think this is a red card any day of the week in any league of the world. You tell the referee, fuck you, that's a red card, plain and simple. Despite that, despite this being a clear red card with no controversy, when this match ended, Munuera Montero was suspended. An investigation was opened into his businesses that have nothing to do with football. There were death threats directed at him and his family. News media outlets in Spain leaked where he lived, and people went to his residence where he lived with his family and wrote death threats on his wall. All because he dared to do what you're supposed to do, which is show a red card to a player who says fuck you to your face. But no, Negreira, right? Anyways, why do I mention José Luis Munuera Montero? Because yesterday during the Real Madrid and Celta Vigo match, this poor guy showed not one, but two red cards to Madrid players. First, it was Fran, who got 2 yellows and got red carded. And then Alvaro Carreras, who complained, so he showed him a yellow, and then he cursed him. He cursed the referee out, so the referee showed him a second yellow, which became a red. Then a fight broke. Well, not a fight broke out. All these players invaded the pitch. They all went crazy, and then this poor guy, Alejandro Quintero Gonzalez, showed a third red card. I think it was to Endrick, who was on the bench. Not that Real Madrid gonna miss Endrick. That guy hasn't played a single minute, but supposedly he was coming to Spain to dethrone Lamine Yamal. Anyways, now Real Madrid TV have already issued a video attacking this guy, saying that it's Negreira. How? I have no idea. Barcelona stopped paying Negreira's company back in 2018, 7 years ago, but somehow this also related to Negreira. And there's already talks about this guy maybe even getting relegated to second division. But no, it's Barcelona that influence referees. It's Barcelona that bribe referees. It's Negreira, right? Well, it gets worse because this is the image that a lot of people did not mention, purposely so, a lot of media outlets. And it's this guy in a suit talking to Alejandro Quintero Gonzalez on the pitch while the match was still happening. Now you might ask, Mo, who's this guy? I'll tell you who he is. His name is Mejía Dávila. He's a retired referee that is on Madrid's payroll. He's the referee and liaison from Real Madrid. In other words, he represents Real Madrid when there's a meeting with the CTA, for example, and CTA wants to meet with all the clubs. They send this guy. He's a representative of Real Madrid, the referee and liaison, Mejía Dávila, who invaded the pitch and went face-to-face with the ref. Now, who is Mejía Dávila as well? That's him on the right, by the way. This is a picture he took. That's his referee in uniform, and then him putting that Madrid jersey over it. Pretty ironic. But this person on his left, that's his wife, Yolanda Parga. She is the CTA, the Technical Committee of Referees, representative to the Royal Spanish Football Federation. Yes, she represents the CTA on the Royal Spanish Football Federation's board of directors. But not only that, she also works for the CTA as an examiner, meaning she goes to matches and she rates referees' performance. And based on the rating she gives those referees, they either get relegated to second division, or if you're a second division ref and you get a good grade, you get promoted to first division. Sounds familiar, by the way? This is what they try to say how Negreira was bribing or affecting refereeing in Spain, right? Because first they said that the money that Barcelona were paying Negreira would take that money and then bribe refs. Zero evidence of that. So they're like, okay, we're going to change our theory. It was through promoting and demoting refs, where Barcelona would pay Negreira would then go to refs. Hey, if you favor Barcelona, you get promoted to first division, where the salary is much higher. Or if you don't favor Barcelona, you get demoted to second division, where the salary is much lower. That's what they said, right? That was the theory they threw out there. But that, of course, was immediately debunked because Negreira had zero power over promotion and demotion of refs, right? But here, Yolanda Parga actually does have the power to promote and demote referees, as she works for the CTA. She's a board member of the Royal Spanish Football Federation, and she's married to Mejía Dávila, the former referee who's now Real Madrid's liaison, who thought this was appropriate behavior and invaded the pitch. And look at his body language. If that doesn't send the message to the ref like, bro, you're making a mistake here, I don't know what does. But Negreira, it's Barcelona that controls refs. Now look at this image. Look at Rodrigo going up to the ref, getting in his face, clenched teeth. Now I'll show you this image because this is the image of players who feel like they are above the rules. And why? Because they are. because Real Madrid, with their Real Madrid TV, video after video, week after week, season after season, have put pressure on referees where referees don't dare to say anything to Madrid players. Remember Vinicius Jr. telling the referee, you're crazy, calling him a son of a bitch to his face, not a single red card. Vinicius Jr. slapped a Valencia player, got a red card, and that red card got reversed because they said, oh, he had a reason to do it. Valverde punched Baena in the face, and there wasn't even an investigation open into it. So the refs are too scared to rule against these players. And when they do, they get punished. Like Jose Luis Munuera Montero, and like this guy, Alejandro Quintero Gonzalez, will be pretty soon. And this image sums it up. Rodrigo clenched teeth in the ref's face because he knows that these refs don't dare do anything against him. But don't forget, Negreira, Negreira, Negreira. By the way, this is how I know I would never be a good ref. Rodrigo comes up to me like this, clenched teeth, I break his fucking jaw. And that would be the last match I would ever ref. Anyways, let's do the comment section, and then we are going to talk about Nkunku because they're talking about a possible swap deal between Lewy and Nkunku. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Bam, bam, beat-em, bam, bam, beat-em, bam. Don't Touch says, do you have any opinions on any other FC Barcelona YouTubers? Personally, you have the best live streams. No. Because I don't watch other YouTubers, English-speaking YouTubers. Not because I don't want to or because I feel like, oh, they suck or anything like that. It's because time-wise, I work full-time, I train full-time, I do this full-time. So it leaves me very little time to watch YouTube. I actually don't watch YouTube. And the very little YouTube I do watch is usually reporters in Spain, in Barcelona, because those are the people who usually have the best source of news, right? Because they're there, they're in the city. They see when shit happens. They see when a representative of a player lands in Barcelona, or when Deco meets with a representative of a player at a certain restaurant or a certain hotel, because they're there, they're on the ground. And plus, being there on the ground, they can make contacts. They can become friends with people within the club who can then give them information. So I don't watch much YouTube because of my limited time. And then the very little YouTube I do watch is YouTubers who are or reporters, I should say, who are in Barcelona. So no. Plus, even if I did, I'm not going to come here and talk shit about other people. Like we're all doing this, for the club. We're all in this together. There's no reason for me to be, criticizing or talking shit about other YouTubers. Like, we're all Barca fans here, and we each have our opinions, we each have hard takes, and we each give it freely, and that's all that matters, right? That's what makes our club a democratic club where we all are entitled to our opinions. Anyways, N60 says, I can't imagine being a Real Madrid player or a fan. They always make stuff in their head to make it seem like the whole world is against them. Yeah, big time. They have victim mentality, big time. Like, it's like they have this complex where they think they are God's chosen club. So if anything happens where they lose, they draw, whatever, there's no way it's them. Like, it's impossible. It's not, they didn't do anything wrong. It's not like they played like crap. It's not like the other team played better. No, it has to be something else. It has to be. It's the ref. It's Negreira or whatever. Which, by the way, that's great for us Barca fans, because it's like when Xavi was coach, right? And people used to come up with all kinds of excuses. I used to say, look, as long as we come up with excuses, we're never going to improve. Because if it's not your fault, if someone else's, then there's nothing to fix, right? Because it's not your fault. But the moment you accept, hey, I made a mistake, this is what the mistake is, this is what I'm going to learn from it, this is how I'm going to improve on it, this is how I'm never going to repeat it, that's when you truly improve. So as long as these Madridistas are using the ref and everything else as an excuse, I'm all for it. Because that means they're never going to improve. Because if it's not them, there's nothing to improve, right? Keep playing the same way. Keep doing things the same way. It's not your fault, bro. Keep doing it. You're good. You chill. Francisco says, no wonder the referees suck. They're all on the second division. And Johnny Son says the Madrid players act so differently when it's the Champions League. They whimper in UCL and bark in La Liga. Yeah, because they know they can, right? But anyways, let's do the last bit of news. That last segment took very long, so let's do the last bit of news. Oh wait, we have a donation from Shin. Thank you so much for the donation, my friend. Bashin says if Madrid were to sack Xabi in the middle of the season, it would ensure they'd win nothing. Of course, nothing wrong with that for me, but it would be seasonal, unaliving. Problems is too many prima donnas on one team, period. Yes, but at the same time, I kind of want Xabi Alonso to stay because he clearly has zero control over the locker room. He hasn't been able to implement his vision. Like, I don't think Xabi's a bad coach. I mean, we saw what he did with Bayer Leverkusen. I think he's a good coach. I think he has a good idea of what he wants to do. He has a good vision. He knows how to implement it at a club like Bayer Leverkusen. But what he lacks is that experience to manage big clubs, because it's kind of like how players, we always talk about Joao Felix, right? Being incredibly talented, one of the most talented players in Europe, but he's in Saudi now because he cannot turn that talent into actual performance. Coaches is kind of like the same. You could be incredibly talented, have a great tactical vision, and have crazy ideas that no one else has. But if you don't know how to manage players, like big players, big egos, prima donnas, then it's pointless, because if they're not going to listen to your vision, it doesn't matter how great your vision is. It's never going to be implemented. And I feel that's what happened with Xabi Alonso, right? Xabi Alonso, I think he knows what he's doing. He has a good idea of how to play. But when you have people like Jude Bellingham, Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius Jr., and they don't want to listen to you, they don't want to implement your vision, it doesn't matter how good your vision is. So I think that's the problem. So on one hand, I kind of want him to stay because the players don't. And there's plenty of reports saying the players don't believe in him. They don't believe in his vision. They don't listen to him. They don't even attend the tactical talks before the matches. Like, but Bellingham doesn't even show up to those talks. So, fuck it. Keep him there. Xavi, quédate. Xavi, quédate. Xavi, quédate. That's the song that the Bernabeu used to chant when Xavi Hernandez was our coach, which means Xavi, stay, Xavi, stay. Karma's a bitch, motherfuckers. Because now we get to sing Xavi, quédate. Anyways, let's do the last bit of news because, ladies and gentlemen, big news. Reports out of Italia, reporting that there could be a possible swap deal between Nkunku and Robert Lewandowski. Now, I'm pretty sure you all know who Nkunku is, but in case you don't, Nkunku, 28 years old, center forward, currently playing at AC Milan. He joined this past summer. He has a contract until 2030, but he had a very serious injury where he has not been back to his old self, or at least we haven't seen that Nkunku from the Bayer Leverkusen days. Now, Nkunku is looking to leave AC Milan, and who happens to be his agent? Pini Zahavi, who is John Laporta's close friend, who is the agent of Hansi Flick. And guess whose agent he is? He's also the agent of Robert Lewandowski. Now, the report states that since Nkunku wants to leave AC Milan, and AC Milan, and we've talked about this in previous videos, AC Milan really want Lewandowski. They want to sign Lewandowski come this summer as a free agent. So, AC Milan want Lewandowski, Nkunku wants to leave. They both have the same agent. Barcelona happen to be looking for a center forward. So the report states that Pini Zahavi will be meeting with AC Milan, will be meeting with Lewy, will be meeting with Barca to try to convince all parties involved to do a swap deal where Lewy goes to AC Milan because AC Milan want him, and Nkunku gets to go to Barcelona since Nkunku wants to leave, and Barcelona need a center forward. Now, I personally think this deal is not possible. I don't see AC Milan trading Nkunku for Lewy because Lewy is 37. He will be 38 come this summer. Nkunku is 28. They also spent, I can't remember how much they spent on 40 or 50 million. So to trade a 28-year-old center forward that you just spent a bunch of money on for a 37-year-old center forward that's probably only going to be at your club for a season or two just doesn't seem like good business. Also, I don't see Hansi Flick wanting to trade Lewy for Nkunku. I do see Nkunku wanting to come to Barca because it's Barca. Who wouldn't? But I just don't see this deal possible. But again, this is just my personal opinion. Pini Zahabi is a super agent. He knows what he's doing. So he's going to attempt it. We'll see what happens. But my question to you is, Nkunku for Lewy, would you do it? Would you not? Let me know down below in the comment section or in the chat section if you're watching this live. And with that, let's do a few more comments, and then we will end the podcast because I got to go have dinner. I'm very, very hungry. I'm going to shower, have dinner. I haven't eaten all day. But let's do a few more comments, and then we'll end this. Let's see. George says, I feel like Zidane might come back for Madrid, and I hope he does. I want my revenge against him. So they're saying that these are reports. I don't know if they're true or not, nor do I care because, it's not a Madrid channel, so I'm not in the business of verifying these kind of reports. But they're saying that after yesterday's match, Florentino Perez stayed late at the stadium. His vehicle was the last vehicle to leave. And they're saying it's because he was making calls. They're saying that Manchester City will be the final test for Xabi Alonso. If you don't know, Real Madrid are playing against Manchester City on Wednesday. And if Madrid lose, excuse me, that Xabi Alonso will be sacked. And one of the options being considered is Zidane. I'm okay with that option. I don't think Zidane is as good of a coach as Madridistas make him out to be. I think he just was riding on the coattails of a well-established team, right? When he came into Madrid, they already had, they had Benzema, they had Penaldo, they had Bale. In the midfield, they had Modric and Kroos and what's his name, the Brazilian guy, the other butcher, Casemiro, and they had a good team, and he was just kind of like, all right, do your thing, and I think that's how they won. I don't know. So if he's a coach that kind of just does whatever the team's already doing, then sure, welcome. Keep doing what Xabi Alonso's doing, which is what Ancelotti was doing, which is nothing. Just telling the players go out there and have fun and play. But anyway. And Sid says, even if Nkunku was free, I wouldn't take him. Fair enough. I'm not convinced, by the way. But I wanted to see what everyone thought first. And let's see. And Zufk says, Nkunku is injury. I'm guessing you mean prone? Let me see. Robert says, talking about this does nothing. Why isn't Laporta making it known the refs are control? Well, he has. He's mentioned it several times. He's talked about, Madridist sociological Madridism. He's coined it that. But, he wants to stay buddies with Javier Tebas, right? So, anyways, let me see. What else? Let's do a couple more comments, and then we'll end this. Do Not Touch says you should make a video that breaks down everything. I felt like that was a good enough breakdown, kind of, sort of. No? Should I make a more detailed one? I could. And then, let's see. One more. Where did we leave off? Let me see. I'm trying to scroll up, see what did I miss. I think I about covered it all. Yes. Johnny Son says, what's up with the investigation on Tebas? It's still going. Justice moves slow. Don't expect any results soon. I mean, even if, the investigation, actually, the case got kicked up to the court. So the court is now leading the investigation. So it's going to take some time, as the courts always do. Anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. I don't think there's going to be any more videos today. Not a lot of news. But I did do a video earlier about Real Madrid's crisis and meltdown. So make sure to check it out. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. And as always, Visca Barça.